If you're gonna pull my hair, at least tell me I'm pretty. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Episode 3 of Season 2 of Chucky is here. It's called Hail Mary. Uh, it's interesting because the last episode sort of split in half. Some of it was sent with Jennifer Tilly and Nika, and some of it was sent with the kids at the school. This one is all kids at the school. There is absolutely no Jennifer Tilly in this one. And we pick up with Father Bryce and Jake having a conversation in his office. And he's basically saying, hey, look, I know you got the dial. I'm giving you a chance to go ahead and repent. All will be forgiven if you just bring the dial back down here in my office by the end of the day. Jake's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he's like, all right, can I leave now? He does. He returns back upstairs to see that they still don't know what the hell to do with this Chucky doll. They can't get anything out of it. They're trying to get some information. It's tied up, but nothing's working. They try to do some torture by putting a nail under his knife. He gets off on it because it's Charles Lee Ray. Of course he's going to get off on the torture. They're just kind of spinning their wheels as to what to do next and to get some type of information out of them. They end up taking sort of shifts to decide who stays. Somebody has to stay with Chucky. You're just not going to leave the killer doll off by themselves. So Devin gets the first shift. He stays with them while everybody else goes to class to keep up as if they don't know where this doll is and everything is normal. They say that Devin's sick, so that's sort of how he gets to be off. In that, Chucky starts getting under the hood of Devin a little bit, starts getting into his psyche. He's like, I killed your mama. Like, hell, I killed my own mama. Like, I'm just about this life. You're not going to get anything out of me by the normal torturing way. And by getting under his skin a little bit, Devin almost tries to kill him himself. He goes off to stab him like, look, this guy's not going to give us anything. Let's just end this now and cause safety, at least for everybody else that's here. Because if we let this thing stay alive, he's going to kill everything that's around us. Right before he stabs Chucky, though, Jake walks in, sees him, stops him, and they get into an argument. The girls show up, Nadine and Lexi, and they see them fighting. Lexi sort of has a adverse reaction to it, similar to how I would imagine her parents used to fight. She's sort of seeing that with him, and she always wants everything to be bright and cheery. She's always trying to put on this front, and so seeing her two friends that she kind of are sort of her safety net fighting messes her up a little bit. She starts shaking and getting a little bit beside herself. Nadine notices it, but she doesn't really call it out. But Nadine's fully aware of what's going on with Lexi. She brings it up later. But in this, Devin off the cuff mentions some type of shock therapy, some conversion therapy. And Jake's like, that's a good idea. Sure. So they basically torture Chucky. Not waterboarding, but they put them through this sort of conversion therapy where they strap open his eyes, where his eyes are left open. And they put drops in his eyes, but he's watching like the most violent stuff you can possibly can for hours to sort of make him grossed out and adverse to the thought of violence. At first, it doesn't work with Chucky. He starts like laughing at it a bit, but after a while, he vomits and throws up at the sight of some of the violence that is put over him. And after a couple hours of that, the kids then do. Put on like a cute thing, like a unicorn video. It's something that Nadine has, and so he just watches unicorn stuff on a loop consistently. But the thought is, we'll get him to the point where he hates violence, and then we'll feed him a bunch of cutesy stuff, and maybe that'll sort of brainwash him into where we need him, so he can give us the information back that we need. It's funny though, the second he sees the unicorn stuff the first time, he just starts vomiting. That's of course it will. That's the adverse reaction he has to it. But all the kids fall asleep, and until Nadine's battery dies, he just gets that constant loop. They wake up, and then Jake takes all the stuff off of them, and they start asking him questions. And basically, this Chucky no longer remembers anything. They ask him the questions like, how did you get here? Why are you here? Why are you not killing? All of that good stuff. And he's like, I don't know. To the point where they're like, oh, we broke him. And I think Lexi says, we didn't brainwash him, we brain bleached him, like he doesn't know anything. Now, Devin is of the belief that this is Charles Lee putting on a front. We're not believing a killer has been reformed and retrained and has now sort of been reset. Nadine says like, oh, he's kind of cute, and Chucky says he's hungry. She's like, well, of course, we vomit all the time. So they go. Some of them go to get food, but Nadine is sort of on watch with Chucky. So Devin, Lexi, and Jake go off to class. But before that, Jake and Devin meet in sort of a hallway because Jake is kind of like, this is what we're doing, this is how this is working, this is the plan. Devin's like, we need to kill him. Like, we cannot let this doll loose, we cannot keep this doll alive. And they sort of have a pact because Jake basically feels guilty. Jake feels guilty for bringing this doll into everybody's lives, bringing this into the world again. So he thinks, hey, I got to do everything I humanly possibly can. I got to pour myself into this to fix this, so I can figure out what's going on, so I can end all of this, and I need to be responsible for that. He's putting that on himself. Devin sort of understands this. He doesn't agree with it, but he understands it, and they kind of come to an amends for a beat to work together. In that, they reconcile by having a kiss sort of in the hallway in the middle of the school, but thinking that they're in a hallway. Unfortunately, Father Bryce is there. He sees it, which cannot end well for them. I thought, before the episode ends, I thought, hey, he knows that these two boys are together, so they no longer have the ability to use their room as a safe haven, because he can just come in. Like, I know the open door policy now is an effect for you guys as well, but that is not where that leads to, because something completely left happens as the episode goes along. Lexi goes down and is met by Trevor. Trevor is now harassing her as he sees her take one of the last pills that she had, and he kind of sees the label on the bottle. And in a way, he threatens her. It's like, hey, look, I'm going to own you. You know, I'm going to mention to you that you're a drug addict because there's nothing else that they take more serious here than being a drug addict. Like, that's why I've been here forever, and you do it, you're going to be here just as long as I am. I'm going to make your life a living hell. He also informs her that her mom lost the mayor race. She's no longer Mayor Cross. She sort of throws it back at him and says, hey, I used to be a bully too. I used to be this. Everything that you gave to me, I then took, manifested, and gave to someone else. But now I'm better, and you need to find that for yourself. He's like, sure, whatever. I'm going to make your life a living hell. And then that she blows the whistle and says, hey, Trevor, no, I don't know how to get you condoms. She says that as loud as she can to basically get him in trouble and get her off her back. It's very important for this episode that we sort of take the little beat that happens in the middle of this episode where that UPS truck, USX truck, shows up again with another doll-shaped package that goes to the church. The kids reconvene on the room, and in the room they give Chucky an apple. He eats it, looking all cutesy. Nadine's falling for it. Lexi even kind of has a moment like, oh, that's adorable, but the boys are like, not so sure. In that, they sort of have a moment where Jake tells them that Father Bryce told me that I need to have this doll in his office by the end of the day, or he'll get in trouble. That's important because the friendly Chucky, the new reformed Chucky, sort of clocks that. You can see his eyes blink. He sort of clocks that information. He now is sitting in the desk with that. It's important for how the rest of the back end of the episode sort of unfolds, but that's very important for him. So then they have to figure out who's going to be watching the kid next, and they're all like, no, we got class, I got class. Nadine can't do it this time because she has class. Technically, she doesn't. She has a confessional that she needs to go to, but that's where she has to head off to. But she doesn't want to tell them that because they're going to get on her and be like, hey, going to confessional, you can't talk about this. Because we all know she's going to just blabber it all out there because, Hail Marys and fathers and all that good stuff. So Lexi ends up staying with the doll. While they all split, Jake goes to class. Nadine goes to her confessional. But Devin, unfortunately, gets stopped by Father Bryce. Father Bryce basically is punishing him because he knows that he and Jake are super close. He's punishing Devin to get the doll back into his office. Because he can't really break Jake, but he knows that Devin's innocent enough and kind enough that if Jake sees that Devin is going through pain, he may turn around and put the doll back in his office. So the reformed Chucky is in the room with Lexi, and they're just having a conversation. He's kind of like a child where he's asking questions. Like the questions where you're like, why? Why this? Why that? Why that? He then gets to the point like, do you have a sister? Do you have a mom? Do you have a boyfriend? And you can see Lexi's face sort of change. Now it's weird because for me, I was thinking that this was Chucky's way of sort of getting under her skin and getting her to leave, because I think he had some ulterior motives and he really was still the Charles D. Ray version under there, and he had not been reprogrammed. We'll talk about that more as the episode goes along. But she starts saying, he's like, what was your boyfriend's name? And she says Junior. And then she starts sort of singing a song, Junior, Junior, and it unrattles Lex. And she storms out of there, not locking the door, just kind of just leaving the door and closing it and just going out of there. Thus, that Chucky doll is in that room by itself. Clearly, she's not in the right frame of mind. She tries to go to the infirmary to kind of get a pill, to get something to kind of ease up her tension. She says she has a headache. Doesn't work out. But the sister that's in charge of the infirmary gives her something to eat to give her a headache. So Lexi takes the pill that the sister gave her to the bathroom to try to just take it, and ends up throwing the toilet, kind of just going over the day. She's freaking out. She tries to open it. Unfortunately, the pill slides down the drain, the super small drain. She can't get to it. And then she just sits there and she's just freaking out. Like the day has just gotten away from her. It's too much. The day is too big for her. Nadine is confessing her life away. She's giving up all the goods, telling it all. Father O'Malley is getting every piece of information that she has. She knows that Lexi is a drug addict, but she really does like Lexi, and she is so pretty. She reminds her of her mother, and she wants to kind of protect her. She likes the boys. She's like, Chucky's been fun. She's giving out all the goods. Then we all of a sudden see a rope come around Father O'Malley's throat, and you start hearing him choking. If she doesn't catch it, Chucky's killing him. We all think, the audience all thinks, that it's the Chucky that they reformed. We think he was lying the entire time, and that's what's happening. But two things. One, and it doesn't dawn on you until you get to the second death that happens in this episode, but this Chucky is very strong. To be able to take someone down that is sitting, even if they're sitting, by the throat and just handle that without getting thrown away, it doesn't really dawn on you too much in that moment because you're like, oh my God, this guy's dying. But it takes a lot of strength to do that. And then that Chucky has a slightly deeper voice, slightly different, slightly more bro man voice, that starts speaking back to Nadine to say forgiveness and all that stuff, and tells her to go do 400 Hail Marys. She's like, that's a bit excessive, but poor girl, she's naive as hell. She does them. She does them going all the way up the stairs till she gets to the room, and she sees that Lexi's not there, nor is Chucky. So she then goes to start going to look for Lexi. She goes to the bathroom and she thinks that's where Lexi, probably because in her brain she kind of thinks of how her mother sort of reacted. She goes to the bathroom to see if Lexi's there. She locks the bathroom door and they have a heart-to-heart. And then Lexi sort of just lets it all off. She's like, I hate that the boys are fighting. I hate my life. I hate that doll. I hate having to always put on this affectation that I'm good, that I am perfect, that I'm fun, that I'm bubbly, that I'm pretty. All of that stuff I hate because on the inside I'm fucking dying. And she says that, and Nadine kind of is like, well, I got it. Like, I'm here for you. If anything, I'm a friend that I'm here for you. And they sort of have a closer bonding moment. Nadine says, hey, let's go get some Oreos. I have Oreos back in the room. Nothing that Oreos can't handle if they didn't turn a bad day into a good day. Lexi's like, cool, but can we hang here a little bit longer because I don't want to face the bad day yet. And they do. Jake sees Devin shining, polishing all the like bronze and whatnot in the cathedral part of the room, and gets a little upset. And he goes to confront Father Bryce about it and says that's not wrong. I mean, to say that that's wrong, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, why are you doing that? He didn't have anything to do with this. You should punish me. And Father Bryce is like, okay, cool. Well, you know what needs to be done to make this work. We then see a quick shot of the Chucky doll in Father Bryce's office. And Father Bryce comes in, sees it, turns around and knows that, okay, Jake did what he said. He put the doll back. Now, the reason why I mentioned earlier why the friendly reformed Chucky clocked that is because I think he went back there because he's friendly with Devin and Jake and Lexi and all of them. He went back there because like, hey, I don't want them to get in trouble, so I'm going to go back to the office at the time so that they don't get into trouble. This is when you know that the friendly reformed Chucky is not the one who killed Father O'Malley. We get even more evidence of that in the next scene because Trevor is trying to go up into Lexi and Nadine's room. He's planning to plant some drugs into Lexi's drawer so that he can blow a whistle and rat on her and get her into trouble. So he plants the drugs, and as he's leaving, he starts to see a shadow. And it's a little redhead. You can see the hair kind of out. It's Chucky. This Chucky's different. This is clearly the Chucky that killed Father O'Malley and held the strength to hold him down. but he punches the crap out of Trevor, flying him across the room. And you already know then, like, wait a minute, there's no Chucky that's had that strength before. What is happening? He then gives us the first super appreciative and super amazing violent death of the season. He punches a hole through Trevor's chest, and then says, "Yeah, I never skip arm day," which is amazing, and it's definitely in that broy Chucky voice, because we start to sort of piece together that Chucky doll that was dropped off is now loose. Father Bryce goes to release Devin from his torture. And then the girls get to their room first, and they see the holy Trevor there, and start freaking out. And then the boys follow right behind, and they start freaking out. And they're kind of like, "Oh my God, what the heck's happening?" That's when Jake realizes that Devin's free, and Devin's like, "Well, then you dropped Chucky off at the door." Now, mind you, none of them know that there's two Chuckies. They just think the one Chucky that they thought reformed is freaking out and going all over the place. But it turns out, and we see in the final scene, we'll get there, that there are two. But in this scene, trying to figure out what to do next, and all of a sudden they do inspections. So the boys have to take Trevor's body, and the two of them, because boys can't be in the room with girls with the doors closed, and they go into the room and lock it. And then sister comes in, checks the room, but Nadine's being super highly annoying. And she's like, "I'm not checking all this. The room's clear. Cool, I'm going out." And so they are cleared. They leave Trevor in there, and the boys just storm off because Devin's pissed. Devin's like, I told you this wasn't going to work because there's going to be more deaths. Like, we're going to try to reform this Chucky, and he's just going to kill. And Jake goes to follow behind him. Now, what's interesting in this is that, one, Lexi feels bad because she left the door unlocked, and she wasn't quite altogether there. But two, Jake's technically not wrong. We see in this final sequence that the Chucky they reformed might still actually be reformed. It's this new bro Chucky that's coming in like, "Hey bro, I'm going to knock out the cream puffs," but they don't know that. So while, yes, death is still ensuing upon this place, it's not the one that they thought. So in the final sequence, we see our happy Chuckies watch all the unicorns singing a unicorn song at Father Bryce's desk, just having a good time. And then Bro Chucky comes in, and this is very Gremlins Part 2, by the way, and I love it. But he comes in, and he's like, "Hey," and he's got like a different body type, different body doll type than the typical Chuckies, the typical good guy dolls. But it still has the same head. And he comes in and is like, "I've always wanted to punch cream puffs," something to that effect. And the reformed Chucky is looking in the eyes of with the bro Chucky and like, what the hell's happening? So it's clear that there is either a contingency plan that if one of the Chuckies goes missing, they're going to send another Chucky there. And it seems like a higher level Chucky to kind of come replace this. I think the contingency plan, however, is coming from Father Bryce. Like, I feel like the reason why Father Bryce wanted that doll back is because he's sort of in on it and he wants the dolls here, whether it be for to use sort of like the therapist did in episode 1, where he's like, "Hey, I'm going to put these dolls in here, and this is what let you know that these dolls aren't dangerous," or he's actually in on it, and he is purposely putting these dolls here. It seems like anytime that a doll appears and happens to go missing, they put a replacement back, and now there just happens to be two, so the bro Chucky is there to sort of now that there's two of them, he's going to remove the puff Chucky and now be the dominant Chucky there. This is a fun episode. We got to see a really violent death, which I've sort of been clamoring for this season. And we got to sort of see a couple of versions of Chucky, and now we're sort of seeing that there's something else afoot here. And the fact that there are now not only multiple Chuckies, but also multiple versions of Chucky, multiple styles. I'm curious to see how the buff Chucky sort of comes into play. Still sounds like, and feels like Charles Lee Ray, but what is designing these to be different? I'm curious to see how we play along with that. It looks like the next episode we're flipping back to Jennifer Tilly's viewpoint, which is fine, because I don't know how long you can stay here in this and kill important enough characters without kind of stretching too thin. So I think you have to go back and forth and then merge these two stories. But yeah, I think all in all, it's a fun episode. I think, like I said, I think Father Bryce is in on this. And I think we all can do a collective thank you for taking Trevor off the board because while he was a bully, while you do need a foil, he was a lot. And I didn't want him to be around much longer because he was starting to become just annoying. He's one of those grading villains where I think you can have a bad person in a show and they're the foils and you're like, oh, I appreciate them. He just wasn't. He was just smarmy and just annoying. And I'm glad that somebody got him off the board. But what did you guys think about this episode of Chucky called Hail Mary? Leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDid@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.